Good morning, everybody. Yes. So, what's happening? I know.
That
Here
was
we are,
quite pitch
live.
perfect.
You think so?
Wow. Takes me to tell you, Gareth.
I'm so glad you never had to judge people singing on a reality show. That would have been horrible for everyone. Huh? Imagine. Sia Sangweni is here, and Simphiwe Tetwa, and Gareth Cliff, and you. That's all that matters this fine morning. We're up bright and early on this Wednesday to keep you company. For all those people who are always interested in where Gord is, because when Gord isn't here on a Wednesday, we always get people asking, why? Why no
yes.
Gord? You know, there's lots of people who love Gord, which is good. He is working on a project. That's why he wasn't here last week, and he isn't here this week. But
he also wasn't here last weekend.
And last weekend, correct. Neither were we, funnily enough.
Yeah.
And he will be back next week, according to Gord anyway. So, we'll hold our breath and we'll see, but it's all good. And speaking of weekends, Sia and I had a conversation yesterday. We can't take Monday off.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be, if you have to work on Monday, we have to work on Monday. So that's the way it goes.
The board reconvened and we
That's right.
made that decision.
No rest for the wicked. That's how it works. And Simphiwe is in the studio in Johannesburg. Sia is at his house. I'm at my house. And you're in your house today. That's how it goes.
Simphiwe was also part of the board making the decision yesterday.
Yes. I'm not happy that I have to come in on Monday, but a girl got to pay some bills. So,
I'm with you. I know. It sucks ass. I know. Same thing. And we've got lots to do on Monday. So we will see you here regardless of the public holiday on Tuesday. We are going to be ready to keep you company. All right. A couple of things that we've got to get started with. I see that a lot of people are talking already about Derek Chauvin, who's been found guilty on all charges in the George Floyd trial. And Derek Chauvin has been found. I don't know whether a lot of people are going to be happy with what's going on here because, the legal system shouldn't be the kind of thing where you have an idea of what you want before you go into it. And there's a woman called Maxine Waters, who's a congresswoman in the United States, who said yesterday, if he's not found guilty, I will be very angry. Now, you can't have emotions around the law. There is evidence. And if someone is not found guilty, it doesn't matter how you feel about it, Maxine Waters, or anyone else for that matter. And I've said it from the beginning, no matter what happened in this trial, it would be a referendum on American racism, right? And the police's racism in America. That's what it's turned out to be. It didn't actually matter how much evidence was brought because people had already made their minds up. Plus, there was such duress on this jury. There's no way that this jury, if they'd ruled any other way than this, that anyone in that jury would have survived. Their addresses would have been published. We would have found out who they are. We would have found out what they did. They couldn't rule any way but this.
Well, the whole city was boarded up before this.
Correct.
I was seeing images of that.
Yeah. And there would have been riots if he'd lost, which tells you something about the way these things work in America. It's just it's a no-win situation. So I'm not thrilled that this ever had to happen. I'm not thrilled that he was found guilty. I'm not thrilled that he would have been found not guilty. I don't have emotions about this thing. I just think that this is probably another step in the direction of declaring that America is some kind of a bad place, when actually, for the average black person, America is probably one of the safest countries in the whole world. You're not going to be shot by police if you go outdoors as a black person in America. There are more white people shot every year than there are black people shot in America. Even proportionally, if that number is up, it is because of the uncomfortable fact that there are more young black men involved in violent crime in America, and there are more police interactions with young black men than there are with white, by proportion. But there's still more white people killed by cops in America. And these are not figures that fit the narrative, so people don't like to talk about it, and they get very uncomfortable about these things. So to be perfectly frank, I haven't watched much of the trial. I watched that South African doctor. We spoke about him last week, the guy who led the evidence for the defense. And I don't have a dog in this fight. I really don't. I think that George Floyd died unnecessarily, but I think George Floyd's life up to the moment that he met Derek Chauvin was not exactly the picture of a saintly human being. And I think that people have to own up to that. If we're going to talk seriously about the problems of Black America, we have to figure out why it is that someone like George Floyd, only because of the way he died, is treated as if he's some sort of hero. He was not a hero. He was a violent man. He was an abuser of women. There is one of the reasons that he was being apprehended is because he already had a criminal record. And that criminal record was the sort of stuff that would get you hauled over the coals by the Me Too movement. But no one's talking about that. Instead, we talk about, the bad cop. It just makes things easier, right? Makes it simpler for people, don't you think? It's very, very
complicated. This whole thing is ugly. I don't want to be involved. I don't want to talk about it. It's just showing the worst of us.
Yeah.
All in all, it's showing the worst of us. Whatever the system is and the processes in court, whatever led to having that 9-odd-minute video go viral, I still haven't watched it. I don't want to watch it.
No.
And whatever circumstance, whatever the ifs and maybes and buts were of George Floyd's life, it just shows the worst of us. I still believe in humankind. I believe in humanity. We are better than this. And that's what I wish we all focused on more. Not our differences, but rather the power of our unity and how we can move on forward.
I hope you're right. And I hope you agree too.
Pardon?
Yeah, I agree with Sia. Yeah, I definitely agree.
She's been sitting and nodding while Sia and I have been talking. Well, mostly me. But,
no. Yeah. But yes, yeah, I agree with you.
I hope you're right. I'm. Let it be that. I mean, that would be then we'd have achieved something,
Yes, I lead with my emotions in the way I govern my life in general. But before I put labels on things, I always see humans first. And not in a colorblind way, but really let's put humanity first. And you realize this is someone's father, this is someone's brother, this is someone's sister. This is all of these people's lives will never be the same again. These, whether you are a young person who's influenced by this negatively or positively, whether you are a cop who's really on a mission to serve and help their community, but now you've been labeled in a certain way. All of this is just not good for any of us. And yeah, that's why I just don't like it. I don't want to get involved. But sadly, we all are.
Yeah, you know what? I'm so glad that we brought this up and we can dispense with it, because I know that there are people who will analyze this to the nth degree. And there are people who have very, very vocal and valid and noisy opinions. And frankly, I mean, Tracy here says his death highlighted the problem that is America. We can only hope his death was not in vain, regardless of who or what George Floyd was. Well, his death, I'm afraid, was in vain. And he didn't have a very exemplary life, and neither did this cop. And the two of them, in some ways, deserved each other. But it is not illustrative of a problem in America. And I disagree that this highlights the problem that is America. America is not a violent, angry, racial divided, ugly, nasty country. It is still the country in the world that most people want to go to. That there is more net immigration than there is emigration by, a factor of 1,000 to 1. People want to be in America. Black people in America have the best lives of any Black people anywhere in the world. They have the most opportunity of any place in the world for an average Black man or woman. And I think that is a great thing, and we've got to give America kudos for that. America may have had slavery in its past. It may have had racism in its past. There may have been rules like there were in South Africa, like the Jim Crow rules, which were like, some kind of Group Areas Act stroke immorality act that we had under apartheid South Africa. But let me tell you, America is not the only guilty country in the world. There are still countries in the world where black people are enslaved. If you go to Libya, you can buy a slave today, right now. That has to count as worse than America. And I don't buy that America is some kind of bad country that has a specifically evil tree growing in its garden. America is just one of those countries in the world that has a lot to reflect on in its past. And we are the same. I mean, my God, ours is probably more recent than America's is, right? Anyway, Carl says, I've got a silly argument. It doesn't matter what Floyd did. I didn't bring that up in respect to in respect of the verdict, Carl, just right up front. But I think that people have, you see these murals of like George Floyd's face painted there. And you hear these people saying, I can't breathe, as if he is someone who should be regarded as some sort of folk hero. He's really not, in my opinion. Anyway, so Carl says, silly argument. It doesn't matter what Floyd did. He cannot be murdered in the street like a dog. It's irrelevant how guilty or innocent he was. Let's just bear in mind that even with all the findings of guilty, it is not murder in the first degree. That was not a charge that was brought. Okay? So this is not a premeditated murder. There's also absolutely no evidence that this was racist. None. There's no evidence that Derek Chauvin is a racist. There's nothing that was said or done during that video that would indicate that it is race. It is just something that is promulgated as part of the narrative in America at the moment. And I'm not prepared to do. I'm with Sia. Like, I want to believe in humanity. I think a lot of ugly things happen in the world. A lot of ugly people do things by mistake or do things on purpose. But you cannot claim that someone is a certain thing unless you have evidence of that. And in this case, I don't know that racism played a role in this. I think we've got cops who are constantly on the defensive. They don't know what they're dealing with. They don't know how dangerous the people are that they're apprehending. And in America, we have this gun culture, which is a major problem. But all of those need to be considered, and we're not going to figure out the answers in this show. I want to change the subject to something that we didn't pay any attention to yesterday, mostly because we're not stoners. But it was 420 yesterday, guys. I mean, like,
all right.
Nobody's going to talk about this. We didn't mention it. Did it even come up in the show yesterday? No.
If Gord was on that,
Gord?
Would have made a difference. Yeah.
Like, if we had Gord on this morning, it would be appropriate, right? He could have like, maybe that's the reason he's not with us right now, huh?
Perhaps.
It's a valid one, Could have just been lighting up a joint.
Damn right.
It is. I don't know. I'm not very backward in my thinking, I would like to believe. But I'm still shocked every now and then, especially on a day like yesterday, with the number of people who posted, just there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to sound cool, but I don't know the terminology. I know a blunt is a spiff, also part of weed. Like, they were posting their spiffs and they were posting their bongs. I thought, oh, my. Okay, Kerry Washington. I thought you were an actress and all put together. Meanwhile, you also light it up and okay.
No, don't believe the posts that you see though. Like on 420, nah. Yeah. Those are just people just hopping onto the trend, honestly. So actual stoners, they don't post. They don't post.
They don't because they're too high, right? They can't actually figure out like where they left their phone.
I guess so, but hey, it looks really cute to be like 420 with my joint.
420 is it you just stay home, you get really, really baked, and you eat fast food?
Okay.
I don't know.
The wrong people.
We are not the audience, hey? Yeah, we don't know.
All right. We didn't even mark it yesterday in our calendars. We were like, yeah, well, just another day, the 20th of April,
Courtesy of the Googler Schmoogler. 420 is cannabis culture, slang for marijuana and hashish consumption, especially smoking around the time of 4:20 p.m., and also refers to cannabis-oriented celebrations that take place annually on April the 20th. Okay. So it's just so happens.
So as you leave the office, you were lighting it up and you're like, ooh, 420. Cute.
Yeah, it's a strange day. I mean, it's like not something that I'd ever really known a huge amount about. Viasen says spliff seer. No,
Sorry.
seer, not his thing either.
I'm so not cool. Okay, it's a spliff, not a spliff.
Yeah,
I've had to buy weed once for a friend, and it also just did not work out the way I did it because of someone
you
in
actually bought it
Rosebank.
what did you do? Buy it from a dealer?
Yeah, well, but I was on this was ages ago. I was on my way to a friend's place. And he was like, he really set me up. He's like, no, in Rosebank, near this place, there's often a guy. Just get some on the way here because they wanted it. And I was like, okay, sure. And once again, the same way I tried to buy alcohol at a restaurant when there were still those restrictions is the same way this happened. It just didn't work out. I'm like winking at the guy, you know, that thing. After all of these signals, he goes, "Do you want some weed?" I'm like, yeah. Thanks, yes. Oh, and I know a banky. A banky is the size, I think.
You know, I wish I could like add value to this, but I know for a fact that the one thing I would never do is ask Sia to be my intermediary.
No,
like if I were someone who needed drugs, either one person I would not ask is Sia. Right, Simphiwe?
Yeah, Sia, you're the reason why they ask, "Are you a cop?" Like, like why? You need to be smooth with it and cool with it, and just talk to the guy and be like, "How you doing?" And "You good, my brother?" Yeah. So peta stuff, like things like that. I know.
That's what you call it.
Stuff.
I don't know. I'm old school and I talk, so I don't know.
You're very well versed on this matter.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Fun fact, I've never bought myself weed, but I've, been high once or twice. I remember in high school, there was like in matric, I think we went a whole term every Friday. My friends and I would have like space muffins during break, and that was like so litty. That was great.
And how was the high for you? How was that?
I was much more. I'm quite a bubbly person, so when I'm high, I'm like, "Hi guys, how you doing?"
Were you like a little bit more chilled?
I'm very chilled. I'm very calm, and I'm just like, "Wow, look at the time. It's so beautiful. Wow, look at that watch. Oh, it's so magnificent." It's like, wow, guys, I'm hungry. I'm really, really hungry. And that's about it. I don't get the hype about it. But
it turns out it's not just us, because I mean, Lenice says, first time I've ever heard of 420. I'm learning something every day. Honestly, like we could all do with a lesson in this from someone who is actually a massive fan of all of this culture that we don't know anything about. But it was something that came up yesterday. I was like, we are really not cool if we don't even know about this. And for some people, it's a major thing, right? They like, I saw a couple of posts on social media too, Sia, of people who are like, "Oh, 420," and like Simphiwe says, I don't know that they're all stoners, because I think those people they're not on social media.
No, but they're not.
It's amazing. Like some people definitely have some kind of connection to that date. They love it. It means something to them. It means more to them than Freedom Day next week, Tuesday. Some
good point.
Weed's a big deal to them.
I just haven't had the best of experiences, and I don't like how I feel. I've probably only had weed once after that horrible experience we had live on the show. And never say never, but I've just ruled it out for me. It's not, I don't like the feeling. I don't like the smell. I don't like how I feel. It's almost as if I just want a log out button. After you've just had enough, you're like, okay, log out. I just want to feel normal again. It's a feeling. So that's why I don't understand how people can drive and work and cook with knives when they're high. I don't know.
Cook with knives. That's a good point.
That would just make me so paranoid.
Then definitely it's not for you, because some people just feel normal. It's just about them escaping from their reality. And so if you like having hallucinations and whatnot, then it's not for you. But if you still feel the same and feel like you, great. Then try it out.
D says, criticizing you, Simphiwe, says she was high once, then every Friday in Matrix, space muffins, ish.
Yeah, what is your story exactly?
You sort out your story there. You would be immediately thrown into jail if you went to court as my witness. I wouldn't even go to jail. You would, for just your inconsistent testimony.
I mean, in my head, it makes the sense. You know what I mean? Like, I was high at the time.
Are you high right now? Is a very warranted question.
Do you remember Bill Clinton saying when they asked him in like some interview or whatever, Mr. Clinton, have you ever smoked weed? And this is how things have changed, right? And this is in the 90s. He goes, I did smoke weed once, but I did not inhale. You're like, what?
What does that even mean?
Yeah. It's like he wants to be cool, but at the same time, he doesn't want people to think he was high, you know. Now, of course, Barack Obama, when he was running for president, someone asked him, and he was like, yeah, I definitely smoked once or twice, but didn't like it. It wasn't my thing. And then, I reckon that if someone ran for office and they said, yes, smoke weed all the time, I don't think anyone would care. I don't think it's a big deal anymore.
There's still a negative stigma around it.
I'm with Sia though. I just don't like the smell. To me, that smells very off-putting. B's GTA Online says 420 originated in the States. 4 friends used to meet up at 4:20 p.m. to light it up. 420 has become the day to celebrate cannabis culture. So there we go. That's a pretty concise definition too. Vyasan says, I've smoked for 20 years and I use it when I work on creative stuff. Organizational admin work is another story. Hey, listen, you're allowed to. It's not illegal in South Africa, right? As long as you have less than, a kilogram of the stuff on you, you're okay.
I wouldn't even know.
What are the specifics right now?
Well, we owe that to a guy who was an IFP MP, a guy called, what was his name? Mario. Oh, God, I've just forgotten it now. But he was the guy who was really working very hard to get medical cannabis deregulated and decriminalized. Mario Ambroseni, that's his name. Mario Ambroseni. He was the guy who made it possible. He was a member of the IFP and he was in Parliament and he actually died of cancer. And one of the things he was using, and many people use when they've got cancer as a palliative, is weed. And he got it legalized. Essentially, his work started the ball moving. So anybody who is celebrating 420 might as well make it Mario Ambroseni Day, right? In this country.
You're right. Anyway. Mario Oriani Ambroseni.
Yeah, sometimes a name goes out of your head and then it takes you like 2 or 3 minutes while you're talking to think of what the surname was or the name, and then it suddenly pops back in. I don't know how my brain works sometimes. It's like files it in some file without a label. And then when I need it, it's like going through all the files. You know how your computer has the little hourglass or beach ball of death? That's what's actually going in my head.
And that's a great skill. Because I'm horrible at remembering names. I could have met you 2 minutes ago and I'll be like, hi.
No, you know what I think the problem is? I think you are one of those people who don't actively listen sometimes in conversations, because it seems like such a one of those foo up in the cloud things to say. But I was also one of those, and it was like a tactic I learned in a YouTube video somewhere. But it's like active listening. So you're greeting someone, you're meeting someone, and you're so used to getting ready to gear up for, how are you? And, oh yeah, great party or whatnot. And someone tells you their name, and then 2 seconds later, you're like, oh, actually, I wasn't listening to that. That's part of the problem.
I can admit to that. Yeah, I think I'll go with that story.
If you want to remember people's names, the best thing to do is to actually attach it to a story. So you have to remember a story about them. It needs to be something like, oh, that's the girl who wore the orange dress or whatever it might be. Then you'll remember it better. So if someone says to you, hi, my name is Denise, and you can't remember, then you can also make up a little thing in your head like, oh, Denise is like, she's the same as the nephew. Then you won't forget her name.
No.
No, seriously.
It feels like a lot of work. Like, no,
but if you have a story with it, then you can definitely remember it better.
I'll try it. I'm good at remembering people's faces, so I'll always be like, "Hi, I know you. I've seen you somewhere. I know. Give me a second. Yeah, I met you there." But like to be like, "Hi, Sia." I don't do that. I've avoided that. I've mastered the art of having a whole conversation without bringing up someone's name.
That's very good to do, but I always find like when people come up to me and they go, "Oh, don't you remember me?" Then because then they're assuming you can't remember their name, and sometimes you really can't. So the best way to diffuse that is to say, "Have we had sex?" And then they go, "What?" So have we had sex? And then they go, "What? How could you ask that?" Then you change the whole subject, and they suddenly, because now if they go, "Yes," obviously, then you had sex and it's embarrassing. You don't remember their name. But if they go no after that, you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I only remember the names of people I've had sex with." Then it's funny and it's cool.
Gareth, I think that's just one of the few things that you can get away with.
Yeah.
For now, I'm
not walking. Good point. Some little Me Too thing. Yeah. I'm not walking into a client's office and going, "Hey, have we had sex? Here's my presentation and pitch for you."
Tracy says, and I love this, Tracy says her 11-year-old tells her that her RAM, her random access memory, is running out when I can't remember things. That is spot on, Tracy. Your kid is very smart. That's what is happening. You know when it says, "Oh, this computer is running out of RAM memory," bloom, 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 can't complete this function. That's what happens. Carol has an interesting story. She says Michael Gove, the conservative British MP, admitted to smoking weed and got into big trouble just recently. So there are still places and certain organizations that take this very seriously. Lenice says, "Did you hear about 3 suspicious deaths in Pretoria East at an apparent party house? The owner had cameras in every room and copious amounts of prescription drugs and other drugs." Holy shit. Do you know the story?
Yes. So the owner's about 60 years old, and if he isn't the owner of a business as well, then he might be a member of management. He was found dead in this house with 2 of his employees. The one is like 23 years old. The other, I think, is also in their 20s or their 30s. So bar this age gap and also just their, employees and management or boss, you're like, how did this happen? There was like a lot. I read this article and it was so descriptive. There was, copious amounts is right and apt to say, copious amounts of drugs, including like mounds of crystal meth, they said. And there was another young lady who was found in this house. She was found still alive. She's in hospital right now. She's not awake and alert, but I think she's in some sort of a coma or ICU. But the way in which, there are just a bunch of things that don't make sense right now. They were found on Saturday morning. What were they doing there? One body was found on the balcony, the other was found near the stairs, the other was found downstairs. How, like, there are too many question marks in the story.
Sure.
Yeah, listen.
And people the last bit here is the house is just a house that you'd find at your street and my street. Very quiet, cool, calm, collected, your neighborhood house. But meanwhile, inside the house, they are living.
Like Lenice says that there were cameras in every room, so obviously they can see what happened if they go through the cameras, right?
I don't know.
But is the footage still there?
I don't know about that part.
Were the cameras even on?
Yeah, that's always a thing, right? When I built this house and I decided that like security was something I had to think about, I had 2 cameras installed, one at the front door and one in the TV room, because if people are going to come and break into your house, what are they going to go for? The TV, right? Always. So I had those, and I don't have them anymore. They've been deactivated because I just didn't maintain them, and I think the hard drive just got full and then the whole thing blew up or whatever, but they don't even work anymore. But it was one of those systems where I could log in from work and I could actually see what was going on in the cameras. So if my dog was walking around in the TV room or at the front door, I could see him. But the rest of the house I couldn't see. And I think it is super creepy to have cameras in your bedroom. Super creepy. Like, that is something I would never do.
I guess.
That is not cool. And especially if you have people in your bedroom and you don't tell them that there are cameras there, right? I think that's not cool. It's really not cool.
I don't know, my siblings and I have learned how to override. Is this a security flaw? I don't think it is. Because, no, we've learned how to override the cameras at home. Because they're just certain things that we only have perimeter cameras, but also we don't want our parents seeing us parked outside and then we're saying goodbye to someone and then we're walking inside and we're stumbling through the yard, and they just don't need to see that. So that needs to go.
You've learned to override the security system. Okay, we got to get some headlines. We'll carry on talking about this in a minute, but we've got to find out what's going on in the world. Relief efforts for firefighters and students affected by the fire in Cape Town continue. The blaze, which broke out on Sunday, has been contained. Although it's not the biggest fire to hit Cape Town, it has wreaked the most havoc in terms of destruction of historic properties. Meanwhile, the case against the man arrested in connection with starting the fire in Table Mountain has been postponed. The 35-year-old man made a brief appearance at the Cape Town Magistrates Court on Tuesday. That's all we've got on that one. A Limpopo teen is facing GBH, which is what grievous bodily harm, and assault charges. Listen to this story. This is about that hideous case of Lufuno Mavunga. You remember? It was in the news. Yeah, so this Limpopo schoolgirl who's accused of assaulting fellow pupil, Lufuno Mavunga, who's now dead, is facing assault and grievous bodily harm charges. The National Prosecuting Authority, the NPA, says that the video of the incident depicts more than just common assault. Suspect appeared at the Toyando Magistrates Court on Tuesday. She is set to appear again on Thursday for a bail application. It's believed the 15-year-old Mavunga took her own life after a video showing her being assaulted went viral on social media. What a horrible story.
Oh. Just
the worst. Flash floods have killed 14 people in the Angolan capital, Luanda. This is not something that you know. When I think of Luanda, when I think of Angola, you tend to forget that it's a very vast country with, huge differences in the different climate zones. There's desert in the south. There are tropical rainforests in the north. In Luanda, apparently 14 people have been killed, and there are about 8,000 people displaced in floods. They have been triggered by torrential rains in Angola. Bridges and homes collapsed on Monday as hours of heavy rain fell on the ocean-facing city, swamping streets and sweeping away cars and trees. Very, very hectic stuff. That's happening just, over the border and one more country away. It's not far from where we are. And a Hong Kong woman, while we're further afield, is the victim of a $32 million phone scam. So if you've ever been scammed, consider that it may have not been for that much money compared to this woman. This is a horrible story too. A 90-year-old Hong Kong woman has been conned out of $32 million by fraudsters who are posing as Chinese officials. The elderly in Hong Kong are plagued by phone scammers who seek out vulnerable and wealthy victims who are willing to transfer money or make bogus investments. On Tuesday, police said scammers targeted this one old woman who lives in a mansion in Hong Kong. Last summer, criminals contacted the unnamed woman pretending to be Chinese public security officials. They claimed her identity had been used in a serious criminal case in mainland China. Now, if you're a 90-year-old, how do you know? How do you know what? if you're a 20-year-old, how do you know when you're being scammed like this?
Yeah. But also in this case, it was like they pretended to be cops. So it's like you would believe that. You'd be like, oh, no, I don't want to be involved in any criminal activity. So, hey, what can I do?
Like in China, where you know that the state and the rules are so hardcore. So anyway, this poor old woman was told that her ID had been used in a criminal case. She was told she needed to transfer money from her bank account into ones held by the investigation team for safekeeping and scrutiny.
Okay, you see, that's where I raise my eyebrows.
Yeah.
That's when I'm like, okay, something sounds fishy here. Why am I transferring my money into the police account for safekeeping? No, Chief. Nah, okay. My sympathy just went out the window.
She gave $32 million over 5 months to the scammers. All on the phone. Ooh. We have talked on the show about these people who get scammed by, like a love match or whatever. These people are so desperate for love that they end up meeting someone online, and that person is a fake person. They're catfishing them essentially, and then they give them money and they give them access to their social media accounts, and those people also steal your money. Ultimately, when there's money, I'm with Simphiwe on this. Like the moment someone says, I need money, please transfer this amount or whatever it is, then there's something really suspicious going on.
I'm just like, no, get away from me, Satan. Nope, not today. That's how I am. No.
Okay, and the last story in the headlines, somber mood as the grieving Elizabeth II turns 95. That's right, the Queen's birthday today. Following a 2-week period of royal mourning, the Queen is celebrating, well, not celebrating, but she's turning 95, and that's got to be really shitty for her. Her 95th birthday would be a milestone. That's a number worth celebrating, don't you think?
Please explain again why she has 2 birthdays.
So the Queen has an official birthday, and then she has her actual birthday. The birthday she was born on is now the 21st of April. And in England, the monarch has an official holiday, an official birthday, which is also usually the day of celebration. They make it in the middle of the year when it's warmest in England, when people can go out in the street and they can make a fuss. But that's just the official birthday.
Is that a standing date for whoever will be the leader of the monarchy?
I think so. I stand to be corrected, but one of the reasons people have said that this Queen's birthday is celebrated at a different time to her actual birthday is quite an interesting story. So Hitler also was born on the 21st of April. And remember, World War II was raging when the Queen was a teenager. Her father, George VI, was on the throne. And they thought, we can't have people celebrating the Queen's birthday on the same day as Adolf Hitler's birthday. So they may have made it an official birthday just for those purposes. But that is not something I can vouch for. It's just a story I've heard.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
So since she has 2 birthdays, does she turn a year older twice? Or
so she's actually she's half the age. She just had 2 birthdays in a year. No.
Just asking. Okay.
So ongoing restrictions curtail socializing. Her birthday, which is marked by a traditional gun salute and the release of a new portrait, will be subdued this year. Although the grieving monarch returned to public duties a few days after the Duke of Edinburgh's passing, there were no plans to mark her birthday publicly. She's expected to stay at Windsor Castle, west of London, where she has been shielding due to the pandemic. So no big celebrations, no big parties. It's going to be a very quiet time for the Queen. Just a couple of points here. Let's just go to, let's see this. Rickus, who says Charlie Sheen's character on 2.5 Men had cameras in his bedroom that was connected to a massive TV on the bedroom wall.
Oh, no.
I wonder if the real Charlie Sheen is also like got cameras in his bedroom. I bet you he does.
Do you owe people to explaining to them, or rather just like a bit of a disclaimer to say, hey, I do have cameras here?
I think you should.
I would just not have them in the first place, not in the bedroom. You know, if you've got security cameras, let them be security cameras. I don't think you need a camera in your bedroom. It's like, you know, if they had cameras in the change rooms at the gym, I'd have a problem with that. Wouldn't you?
Yes,
completely, but not even in the bedroom. I'd even have an issue if it was in the lounge. I would want to know. Am I being a little too extreme there?
Well, yeah. I mean, listen,
I get the lounge. You know, that's where everyone's chilling. That's where everyone's having drinks or whatever. So if something does happen, you can see who did what. The bedroom is much more of an intimate place, and I feel like you just want to be yourself. It's the same notion of why we don't have cameras in the restroom. It's the same thing. So for me, it's just like, raise eyebrows. You better tell me.
Tabo says, I'm sorry, did you say releasing a new porn or a new portrait? No, a new portrait of the Queen, not new porn. The Queen's releasing new porn on her birthday. Can you imagine?
The Queen is very talented, but I do not think she wants to be known as someone in the adult film industry.
So Carl Carl just brought up something which I think we must refer to and we must talk about a little bit, even though I don't know a whole lot about it. There's this talk of a super league.
Yes.
Huge story.
Why have we all been wrapped into this, even though we do not watch sport?
I literally said that to Sia. I was like, oh, I know you guys are not about sports, but Super League, what's going on? I need to understand, like, where does it stem from? What's up with the billionaires? What's up with the clubs? Like, what's going on?
All I understand about this is that there are, I think it was 6 clubs that are now deciding that they're going to stop abiding by FIFA and UEFA rules, and they want to be able to, determine their own. Is it 12 now? I don't know, but I heard it was 6 on Monday, so that might have changed. Anyway, they've decided they don't want to abide by those schedules because it doesn't always allow them to play each other as regularly as they'd like to. So it's pretty much about money, as I understand it. But it would change a lot about the way that the fans get to see the games. And I think from what I've seen from people who I do know who know more than I do about soccer, these people are not happy about this. They think it's a bad idea. I'm gonna take their word for it and say, all right, I don't know, but if they're saying it's a bad idea, it's a bad idea.
Correction, you were right. It was 6 of the big football teams. And the way it was explained to me yesterday was it's kind of just about money right now. I think one of the biggest leagues currently, if you win that, you get about 60 million. I don't know if it's euros or pounds. But with this new league, the winning team would get about 150 million, so which is more than double. And the reason why other teams and other leagues are annoyed are that they are now lesser of a priority. Some of these teams are, you know what, why am I even trying? Never mind. You know, this was like coming out of my mouth. I'm going, why?
Right. We tried.
I was about to get into a soccer schedule.
I've been seeing some of the tweets, and some of the teams are pulling out, and Liverpool and Man United, and I'm like, wait, what does this mean? But this is exciting. I'm not a soccer person.
There's a Mourinho being sacked, and that's.
And it's like, oh my gosh, it's breaking news. And I'm like, oh, okay, what does this mean?
Yeah, if you haven't realized yet, if you're a massive sports fan and you're coming to us, we're in big trouble. This is not something we can help you with.
Breaking news, we don't know what's going on.
Kudos to us, though. This was somewhat convincing. I think we could pass. At a dinner party, we could have passed. No.
Yes, I think it's a great way to start conversation. So what do you think of the Super League? Do you think it should have been canned? Of course. No. I'm mad. Okay, I don't know the names of the players. Shucks.
No, I'll just be emphatic with one statement. Oh, Jose Mourinho, hey, how about that?
I don't know. Does he have anything to do with the Super League thing, or is that a different story? So Tabo says Man United just pulled out of that crap this morning. The 6 English teams withdrew from the Super League last night after major pressure from fans and the UK government. That's according to Adrian. And Carl says, you guys are fucking this up. Please call Mbulelo.
Okay.
We tried.
He's working on a documentary right now, so as soon as he's available, we'll get him on.
Tracy says, Sia explaining soccer is like dissecting a frog and expecting it to live.
Tracy, don't be so hard on me, okay? That was a real good effort, I'll admit. For myself.
Quit while you're ahead, says Tabo. Yeah. Great Cliff Central Sport. Yes, now if you do want to hear what's going on in sport, subscribe to Mbulelo's Cliff Central Sport and the MKT show. It's on YouTube, and you'll enjoy that a lot more than you will this discussion between the three of us. Promise you.
I think our listeners are very ungrateful this morning, Gareth. I think so. At least we mentioned it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's like kudos to us.
Yeah, it's coming home. Football's coming home.
No kudos to us. I'm sorry. We cannot. That was a disaster.
There's something about the 90 minutes of the 4-4-2 formation that's just not going to be the same anymore.
This has been the last 5 minutes that people will never get back, that they are going to be angry about. So let's just kill it right now. I'm with all these people who are complaining. Stop it before we get hurt. Jesus.
It is, shame. Let's leave it.
No, you guys are great at sports, says Lenice, the only person who knows less.
Wait, is Lenice saying we are great at sports or we are great sports? I think she's trying to give us a bit of a cushion of a compliment to go with here.
Can I just say, like, when a public holiday is on a Tuesday, like next week, why do they force people to, shouldn't they just give us the Monday rather? Say, look, I know it's tomorrow, the 27th, but you get the 26th. Can't we just do that? That make more sense?
But then what would happen when it falls on a Wednesday? Would they want to then change it?
You can move it to whichever weekend, don't you think?
Okay, so you're saying if we have a public holiday between Tuesday and Thursday, it should be moved to either Monday or Friday.
Yes, correct. Always public holidays are Monday and Friday. So Carl says, Gareth, the other day when you said you're really ignorant about things that you're ignorant about, I didn't take you seriously. Wow, that was bad. Yep. Sport. Mm-hmm.
I still think they're being so hard on us.
It's okay.
Oh, this is interesting. Winsterian Pikachu says Hitler was born on the 20th of April, star sign Aries, god of war, not the 21st. See, so that kind of invalidates that story of mine.
That's a great story, though. I'd want to.
Go
with that.
Yeah, go with that.
I'm kind of
proud that I don't know Hitler's birthday by heart, that I got it wrong. I think that's a good thing.
Amen to that,
So does this say that Hitler was so into his star signs, and does that just speak about his horoscope and what was written in the stars for him if he was Aries, the god of war?
What do you think of someone when they start a conversation with star signs?
Oof.
I get so turned off.
I'm just like, yo.
I struggle to take those people seriously.
Yeah. I mean, I know my star sign, but I don't know about other people. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, you can't have like a Leo with the Aries or this or that. And I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about right now. I'm lost. I'm confused.
That's why your relationship didn't work out, because, just such a Taurus.
Yeah. And I'm just like, what does that mean?
What does it mean? So if somebody starts, if I've never met them before and that's how they start the conversation, I really struggle from that point on to say anything meaningful to them. To have a
yeah,
real...
I'm high-key judging. I'm just like, this is you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you just say
not even
high-key judging? I like that. That's as opposed to low-key judging.
Oh, wait, no, there's high-key, and in this moment, so I'm like, I'm low-key judging you, hey? I'm like,
how do you know which one you're doing?
Oh, it's just like a feeling, you know. I know with like star signs, I'm like, that's a high-key judge. That's almost like a red flag. But, you know, and then like maybe sports, I'd be like, okay, maybe I'm low-key judging you because, hey, you're into sports and I'm not. But we can have a bit of a conversation. I can fake it and be like, super sports, super league, hey.
You're back to sounding like a 420 ambassador right now.
Corona's Boring says, if the whole country goes ballistic and demands an end to the lockdown on the 26th, maybe we can officially change the day. I don't know why we're still in level 1. Does anybody know? Is there any explanation for this?
Isn't this the last level? So we can't go to level 0 now. It's like, this is it.
Why not?
There's a part of me that just thinks this is how it's going to be for quite a long time. And isn't it just, because where do we go? Will they just one day say, oh, okay, cool. All of these rankings or ratings are dead and gone now, and we move past that?
So we've been looking at like under 1,000 new cases a day from probably February. It's not going down, but it's staying around between 700 and 1,000 new cases a day since February. So that means it's more or less, it's done. We're finished with this. So can we take down the national state of disaster or whatever it's called? Can we just go back to not having curfews? Why do we still have a curfew? Anybody know?
But also note just how easy it is to sell panic and fear to a lot of people. I think it was over the weekend, if I'm not mistaken, or was it Monday, when the world infection number of coronavirus crossed 3 million. And I don't specifically remember because I wasn't reading the news or paying particular attention, but the point was it popped up around me so many times on screens, on social media, because that is just the fear of it all. To say we crossed over 3 million and how scary that is, that's freaky. And that is just what they want to sell to people.
I think a lot of people, they need a Nunu blanket. That's also why they wear the masks. Because they've now decided, even Anthony Fauci's now decided in the US, wearing a mask outside doesn't make a difference, really. Inside, sure, you can wear a mask. They say maybe it'll help, maybe it won't, but you wear a mask inside. But now they're saying in America, don't bother wearing a mask outdoors. Does you no good. So why do we persist with this stuff? Is it because people they want to feel like, they want to feel safe. So anything they can. You remember when they said, like, put on 3 masks? Remember, triple mask? Stupid stuff. It's just mad.
Well, if there's one thing that must stay is the 1 meter social distancing, because I'm enjoying the fact there's no one right behind me breathing heavily, and you just like personal space, but personal space. Yeah. That's the only thing I want to stay. Like, honestly, it should stay. Anything else, I'm good, hey? I'm good, I'm great, I'm awesome.
But you can still do that. You can still, like, you just stick your hand out and just hold it in front of people who get in your way. You're like, stay away. You could be rude.
Have you met black people in the queues of Capitec? You know what I mean? Like, have you seen where they just here and you're like, but chief, I need to breathe, and they're just breathing on you. No, and no. Or like seeing the taxi lines. No.
I haven't had the confidence to tell people to stay away from me, even though I'd like to. It's not as impactful to really just like side eye someone, but I really want to say, hey, you're a little too close. Can you just get away? Just please. And I think I'm on a couple of occasions, I felt as though people have judged me for still keeping to social distancing. For example, in a queue, I'm still that person. I will look at where the sticker is on the floor and I'll stand there and I'll specifically not move forward. And I think a lot of people are over it to the point it's like, come on, idiots, just move forward.
Do you remember? I mean, it feels like so long ago, but do you remember when, for example, there were only a certain number of people let into a shop at a time? Remember at the beginning of this thing where we had to line up outside these shops for groceries? Remember?
What a sad time. A sad time. And you could count the people and you're just like, there's 5, I can go in. No. Only 4 people allowed in and whatnot. And you're like, oh gosh. Took you 3 hours to run one errand. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, Linda says, Sia, you don't need confidence, you just need a death stare. It works. That's if you want people to stay away from you. Listen, if you don't have the confidence to ask people to stay away from you, then they're not going to stay away from you. And that goes for Corona or not. So I'm with Linda. The death stare might be the thing to do.
That's
all right. It is 7:00. When we come back, we've got quite a lot to get through today. We've got a lot of things that we want to talk about. And we've also got Dr. Rob Daniel, who is a chief specialist ophthalmologist at the Santon Eye Clinic. Have you ever wondered about what the biggest problems people have with their eyes are, and what kinds of things affect most South Africans when it comes to our vision? Also around COVID, what has happened to people who need to go to the ophthalmologist, need to go to the optometrist? Also, what's been happening with doctors who've been working from home? We'll find out all about that and more with Dr. Rob Daniel a little bit later on. Don't know what's going on with my voice this morning. I hope I'm not getting sick.
We speak against COVID, and this is what happens.
It's the Rona. All right, we'll be back in a moment.
This week on Auto Central.
First question comes from Lizols, who's asking, trade a finance car with a cosigner. So is it possible to trade in while you have, debts essentially? Also, can my husband be a cosigner as he has better credit and a better salary?
Blind History is back for its 5th season. The award-winning podcast takes a look at some of the most enduring heroes, greatest statesmen, most reprehensible villains, and despicable tyrants of history. Join me, Gareth Cliff, and my co-host Anthony Mederer for the new series of Blind History. It's available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Right, if you've just joined us now, it is a Wednesday morning, cliffcentral.com. We usually have Gord on a Wednesday, but this morning it's me, Simphiwe, and Sia, here to keep you company. Got a lot to talk about, and we're going to get to Dr. Rob Daniel a bit later on. He's the Chief Specialist Ophthalmologist at the Santon Eye Clinic. So all your questions about eyes, about what sort of things happen to you as you age, what the biggest problems are. The one that I'm most terrified of is this macular degeneration. That's something
What is that?
That's where your retina actually detaches, isn't it? I think that's the one. I think that's the one. I mean, but that's like I met someone over the weekend at that wedding I was at who's got problems with his cornea, which there's so many parts of the eye that things can go wrong with, and I just get I get massively paranoid when I think of things going into my eye. All right, I can't watch those. When people like
feeling cold already,
movie or where they put a needle in someone's eye, that to me is just like, it freaks me out completely. I can see a needle going into an arm or whatever, but not into an eye. But we'll speak to Dr. Rob about all the things that he can tell us about vision, and also whether there's a link between people who've suffered from COVID and their vision. Also, all the things that we should be protecting our eyes from, staring at a phone or a computer for too long. It's not always just the things that you think about, that you think, oh, that's obvious, but it's screens. We're around these screens the whole time. And I think that probably is quite bad for our eyes anyway. We'll ask him those questions, and you can put your questions to him as well. Let us know.
And we know of Dr. Daniel because of someone we know who actually went to him for help. And I often, you listen to someone offloading and you want to be there and help them out. But when I heard what she had to go through, like it's great that we have this form of medical assistance, but to have a contraption, you can see this thing coming towards you and pierce your eyeball.
Yep. No, that's horrible. That's what I'm thinking about. That stuff is just that makes me really uncomfortable. Don't know what it is about eyes. I always think like the eye is just the one thing. Like if you said to me, where would you like to be hit? The one place I know for sure is that I don't want to be hit is the eye. I'm so terrified of losing my vision, and the eye is super sensitive as well. To me anyway.
And I think about it.
When they do these operations on your eye, they only give you a local anesthetic. It's usually drops in the eye. So it's not. So you're totally conscious and awake, and because they're your eyes, you can obviously see what's going on, which is freaky as well.
And people often complain about how they don't like dentists. I really have no issue going to the dentist. I don't even mind the sound, whatever they're doing, But I'm thinking about the sound if they're working on your eye. What does that sound like? Is it very jelly-like? Does it just have moisture? Is it a drill going to?
Don't like this at all. All right, so that's coming up. We can ask all these questions of Dr. Rob Daniel in a little while. There are a few emails I want to get to just now. I figured out why I was, I started sounding like I was throaty just a little bit before we took the break. And I was like, why is my voice like this? Well, it's obviously all the smoke in the air from 420 and from the fire in Cape Town. That's what. I'm very sensitive, Sia. A little bit of extra smoke in the air, and then suddenly I start going. So maybe that's it.
People agree with that.
People are reminding me of the crazy stuff that we've been through in the last year. Like Justice says, remember when we couldn't buy pies or chickens at Woolworths because of the lockdown? Auxie Head says, remember when they used to close down a whole store if one person got COVID? Remember that? Even an office, they'd shut down a whole office just because one person got COVID. Crazy.
The crazy curfews, even before this, the one that made the most impact for me was just being able to leave your property. And that was to go out walking, that you could only do so before 9, and how walking became so important to people. And it's all in your mind, though, because I remember just how much I wanted to. I just wanted to leave the house. It was this idea that because I'm being told I can't leave the yard, now I definitely want to. It's crazy how that has played out. So that's why, if this is a conspiracy theory, then sign me up and call me part of.
I know what you're about to talk about. Go ahead and introduce this. This is pretty wild.
I saw this clip of a guy talk about what power our governments and various governments are trying to exert on us by proposing this idea of a medical passport. So essentially, whether you're vaccinated or not, and what you have and where you're going, it's all part of controlling us. Even explaining it like this, I totally get that I sound crazy, but I listened to this guy and I thought, wait a minute now. I sort of believe what he's saying.
So should we play the video and let people know exactly what you're talking about here? These vaccine passports. Just listen to this and see if you agree. Let me play it for you quickly. Hang on. There it is.
It was a UN document. This is common knowledge. And it basically outlined the lockdowns, and they just gave it to each country and allowed each country to tweak it for their own people, to make it more palpable for their people, and to give the impression that it wasn't an international document disseminated to all countries to make people think that every country made up their own rules. No. The 5 levels of lockdown were in there. In a place like Ireland, they went level 1 to 5. In a place like Canada, where we like colors, now we got green to gray. It's still 5 levels of lockdown. All the 5 levels are identical. They used Australia as the model for the 5th level of lockdown, where you can't leave your house, you can't go can't literally do anything. And that's what they really want to do here. Well, I heard about the mandatory quarantine hotels, and I knew right away it's a complete violation of our rights. And the only reason they're doing it is because they want to convince you to accept the vaccine passport. I want to stress that. Everything that they're doing, closing your business, closing your gym, forcing you to wear a mask, all the stuff they're doing is to try to convince you that it's a good idea for you to go along with this idea of a vaccine passport, so they can vaccinate you multiple times a year, every year, and then use that as an excuse to prevent you from travel, work, congregating, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you think it's a conspiracy theory, they already have it in place in Israel, and they've already made it quite clear that if you don't get vaccinated, you're going to be relegated to small shops and grocery stores, and you're basically shunned from the rest of society. And that's what they want. They want a complete medical tyranny on you. Once you give in to medical tyranny and you do not have bodily autonomy, and they can literally forcibly inject you with whatever they want as a pretense for you to live your life, are you free? Absolutely not. That's the most invasive violation of our rights thus far. And that's why they waited an entire year of demoralizing you and destroying your life and making you as hopeless as possible, so you will not just accept it, you will beg for it. That's what they're doing. They're doing psychological warfare on you to weaken you to the point where you will not only accept defeat, you will accept perpetual defeat for the rest of your life.
Jeez.
I don't know what to believe anymore.
First of all, who is that guy? He looks like Adam Sandler, so I don't know how to take him seriously. But there's stuff he's saying there that just it makes me uncomfortable, because it's not like he's saying the aliens landed, or that the moon landing never happened, or that Bigfoot's coming to get you. This is the conspiracy that these are the people who murdered JFK, and so I don't. This is not wild. It's not wild nonsense.
What he's proposing, yeah.
So, I mean, I've been very clear about this from the beginning. Like, if they tell me I need to have the vaccine in order to travel, I'll do it. I'm not in any huge hurry to get the vaccine, because I frankly don't think that our government will deliver to everybody anyway before the end of this year. But there are people who need it more than me. Like if you're old or you're vulnerable, or you've got comorbidities, blah, 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 then you should get the vaccine first. I'm not rushing to get to the front of that queue. I'm not one of these anti-vaxxers who thinks, you don't need this at all, and stay away, and it's a conspiracy. But this guy, like he makes me a bit nervous, because what if it is some kind of coordinated thing where now suddenly you can't go somewhere, suddenly you can't say I don't want this injection. Bodily autonomy is what he called it, and to me that it does sound pretty plausible what he's talking about.
And it's that last line that's the kicker for me. Are we really free? Because right now, are we really free?
Yeah.
With all of these rules in place? Well, ordinarily, I would have said, don't trust a guy with a neck tattoo and also Bono-esque glasses. If you aren't watching this, if you aren't watching this, that at least sets the scene of who this guy was. But I don't disagree with what he's saying. I don't think he's crazy or all too crazy.
So what does that make you want to do or not do? That's important. Does this mean you're going to stay away from the vaccine? Does it mean that if you had to get a vaccine passport that you would get a fake one? Because they're going to make fake ones, obviously. You could go to the right guy who's going to know a guy.
I didn't think about that.
Oh, yeah. You could get a tame doctor to sign the thing for you. Oh, yeah, you definitely had the vaccine, and then throw the vaccine down the sink,
To me, my takeaway is things aren't as they seem, and they aren't rather as innocent as they seem. I think there's much more at play here than just a virus that came out of nowhere, but rather it's about control and power at this point. Oh, I really am sounding like a crackpot myself now, but it's quite honest. I heard Justin Trudeau a few days ago speaking about how, looking at what is also happening in the UK, exactly what you were mentioning a little earlier, Gareth, that vaccinations are all good and well, but you still have to wear masks and you still have to adhere to social distancing. So essentially saying that vaccines aren't effective. So what is the point of them 100%? Well,
this time last week, Damon and I were having exactly
right.
And he was not budging. He was like, no, it is not going to put people off getting the vaccine if you also tell them they've got to wear a mask and social distance. But it is, because like, if you say to the average person, take this vaccine and then you are safe, you're 99% safe from this virus, 95% safe, or whatever the figure is, then they'll get the vaccine because they'll go, okay, well then I don't have to worry anymore. Then Corona is a thing of the past for me. You tell them that, but you say, but you must also keep wearing a mask, and you must keep socially distancing, and you must sanitize your hands the whole time. You're like, but then it's the same as if I hadn't had the vaccine. To the average person, that's how they think, right? So it's put a lot of people off. Right. I think that Fauci is backtracking on this in America at the moment, because he's been saying, listen, we're still doing the tests. You could get reinfected, a very small chance of being reinfected. In fact, the chance of being reinfected, they say, is about the same as the chance you have of being struck by lightning. So why live your life if something is such an infinitesimally small possibility, why live your life in perpetual fear? Why live as a slave to this nonsense if you don't have to?
I do also get it from the other side of the scale. I read an article about someone in their middle-aged or towards their 60s, was very emotional on their part, talking about the relief they have had since getting vaccinated. And I understand that. I think for some people who were on edge, who had some comorbidities, who just want to feel safe, I do get that it's a relief to you, and that's a solution for you somewhat, even though now with different strains you don't know how to feel or you don't know what to make of it. But for everyone else, for most of us, I don't know.
We haven't actually spoken about Corona for a long time on the show. I mean, we I think we've tried to stay away from it because it's a little bit boring. But I saw this story on the news the other day. It made me think we've got to talk about this. This is on Sky News, and they were talking about long COVID, meaning like there are people who had COVID and now they've got symptoms that are ongoing, and they've got problems that they've developed as a result of having COVID. My problem with this is that all the people they interviewed on TV about this are all prime candidates for like having other like mental health problems. Like these are not like people who they're not stable. They're people who would look for a reason to keep being sick, either hypochondriacs or they've got Munchausen syndrome or any of that stuff. And they need a reason to be sick. It gets them attention. It gives them an excuse to not have to do the things that they've got to do. And I'm telling you that this is, for some people, Corona is just a great excuse to be a loser. Corona has become it's like their thing that makes them interesting and important. You know, someone goes to a party like, I've had Corona. Like, really, is that interesting? To them, it is. They think it's a big deal. And long COVID, do me a favor. I'm pretty sure long COVID is exactly the same thing as hypochondria.
Hey, but if you're one of those people who wants to get vaccinated, go for gold, particularly what the Maldives are doing. They have, according to them, had a very successful vaccine rollout. What's the percentage? Let me try and find it. They've vaccinated the majority of their population. And so now they're saying they are planning to vaccinate tourists soon as well. So they're trying to promote tourism back to the Maldives. They don't have a firm date just yet, but they're looking towards July and August. They're saying, hey, come and visit the Maldives, spend some money here, and actually we can vaccinate you while you're here.
Get a free vaccine. Sure.
Yeah, they're testing out, and they've announced a vaccine on arrival scheme that was announced by the tourism minister. So there's an article that crunched some of the numbers. If you're in South Africa, you can look at a return flight for about 16,000 rands. You weigh that out, hey, 16,000 rands flying to the Maldives, I get a holiday and I get vaccinated. Oh, and the Maldives doesn't have a quarantine requirement. So you can get in and you get right into the action.
Okay. I mean, these quarantine hotels that sounds horrible. Also, I mean, for some of them, it's with 2 weeks that you have to be in the quarantine facility.
Yeah, sometimes just like an average of like 10 days.
Listen, count me out of travel until everything's back to normal. I'm not interested in traveling until that.
The figure was 60%. The Maldives has vaccinated 60% of their population so far.
Julie says the CDC is now also backtracking on the number of COVID deaths. That is true. What is their end game of having everyone vaccinated, says Bruce? I don't know. I mean, that's what, I'm willing to at least consider some of these conspiracy theories, but it doesn't seem to me like we know what the intention is, which makes it very difficult for me to understand why anyone would be, especially like when people come up with this, Bill Gates is trying to control the world and he wants everybody to be microchipped and, come on. Why? What do you want that for? I'm not sold on that. Eleutheria says, my mother went to the doctor yesterday. The doctor said that they're currently seeing very little COVID. The numbers are way down, and that is being seen in the practice. Level 0 now. Exactly. It's time, for heaven's sake. It's getting ridiculous.
So by you mentioning the curfew and why we're still on level 1, are you thinking about just truly going back to normal in terms of clubs? I think nightclubs are the only ones who are still banned right now.
Yeah, I don't care about nightclubs being closed or open because I'm not really that interested in going to nightclubs anymore. But I don't like the idea that if let's say I go and visit my sister and we're watching movies and it's like 11:30, then suddenly I need to get in the car and go home because the curfew's at 12. I don't see the point of that. Or if I have to wake up very early and go to the gym, or I have to get to a meeting which is on the other side of town, so I leave, really early to I don't know what the curfew is. First thing in the morning, is it 4 or 5 a.m.? But it's stupid. We don't need it. I think it's completely unnecessary at this point. It just doesn't make sense to me. Get rid of the curfew.
Yeah.
And also, the thing that really bothers me, what John is bringing up here. John says, it is unbelievable that the state of disaster is extended and no one bats an eye. That really is scary, because the state of disaster allows the government to short-circuit a bunch of procedures, which ordinarily they'd have to consult with Parliament. It would have to go through a bunch of different decisions before it becomes a law, for example. And there's a state of disaster, the National Coronavirus Command Council can issue an edict, essentially. They can make a rule, and we just have to follow it. So I think it's very dangerous that we are allowing our government to just keep rolling over this state of disaster. It's not good. So I'm with John on that one. Mm-hmm. Rebellious Ruth says, my mother is still locked away in her retirement home. Yesterday was a difficult day. Seriously thinking of making another plan. Yeah. You know what? Maybe she should move in with you, Ruth. I think if you've been vaccinated or you've already had COVID, maybe she could move in with you. I don't know. You see, I don't want to give anyone advice, because then they'll start saying to me, what do you know? I'm not qualified. I just know if I had not seen my family during lockdown, I would have gone crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I would have gone crazy. And there are people who haven't seen anyone. They've like Ruth's mother, been locked in an old age home for a year and a month. It's crazy.
And I have no business watching videos like this, but over the weekend I did take advantage of, that YouTube rabbit hole. I got into a YouTube rabbit hole of compilation videos of grandparents seeing their grandkids after a long time. Oh, look, is it what a 26-year-old guy should be doing on a Saturday night? No, but I didn't.
What a life you have. This is so depressing.
It was so sweet.
Oh, my God.
These grandparents were like, oh, no. We don't even recognize our grandkid. And they were crying. And all of these reunions at airports or dinners. I thought, this is sweet.
Here's a story. Basitsana, who messages us often on the show, says, oh, my soul, I'm currently doing the walk of shame. Oh. So Basitsana stayed over somewhere last night, and she's doing the walk of shame. Man, that is... Can I tell you something? You must always have a change of clothes in your car. Always. And a toothbrush. I don't need it, but I still have it.
No. Own it. You've got to be it. All right. It's one of my favorite things, since I don't have much of a social life these days, is to notice some people on a Friday night here at the complex. We have like 5 or 6 Ubers line up at the gate, and I'm seeing all of the people climb into them. Then on Saturday morning, I monitor everyone looking disheveled coming back in.
You're the nosy neighbor nobody wants.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's talk to Dr. Rob Daniel. I'm very excited to speak to him. He's the Chief Specialist Ophthalmologist at the Sandton Eye Clinic. Hey, Dr. Rob, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It's nice to see you. So I've wanted to have someone who does what you do on the show for the longest time. And you're the guy that we really want to talk to, because we've actually got someone who we work with who's been to you recently. And there's so much about the eye that people are interested in. We've come up with questions already before we got you on, and Sia and I were talking about how it freaks us out when we see like needles going into eyes and things. And the eye is such a sensitive piece of anatomy. I mean, there are people who still, it eludes and evades even the most brilliant evolutionary scientists to explain things like the eye, because it's just an incredible piece of technology, natural technology, obviously. But how did you get into this before we even get into the eye and the problems around the eye and the things that you want to talk about? How did you get into to being an ophthalmologist?
Well, I started off my career as an anesthetist, and then I did trauma surgery. And then between those two, I saw that ophthalmologist patients loved them. So I decided to change. And then I just locked into it. It's absolutely fascinating. The eye is actually an extension of the brain. So a lot of the tissues in the eye are, if you look embryologically, it actually pockets out from the brain. So that saying that the eye is the window to the soul is actually quite true, because the eye is connected to all three levels of your brain directly, and it is in fact, like I say, part of the brain. So it really is the most sensitive tissue, or most sensitive organ. The tissues in the eye have the most nerve endings of any tissue in the body by a long way. And 80% of the information coming into your brain comes through your eyes. So we're visual creatures, and our eyes are easily the most valuable sense we have.
It's amazing. You know, I often think, and it's a game that I play sometimes, you know, when I'm with friends, it's like, if you had to choose, you know, gun to your head, would you rather be blind or deaf? It's a horrible thing to ask people, but it also tells you a little bit about them. Just about everyone would rather go deaf than be blind, because so much of, as you say, the information that we get about the world around us is through our eyes. And there's nothing worse than knowing that your eyesight's fading. And it happens as a natural result of aging. You know, your eyes they deteriorate over time. And even people with brilliant 20/20 vision won't have that vision forever. Or are there cases where people have maintained brilliant eyesight well into old age?
So the most common cause of eyesight deterioration with age is cataracts. And it's the most common affliction of humankind. And it's directly correlated with age. But thankfully, it's the most effective treatment we have. So cataracts are eminently fixable, and it's one of the few things in life that are permanent. So when you have a cataract operation, that lasts you, I always say, to the pearly gates, you know, for the rest of your life. But so that's by and large the most significant age-related problem and the most common problem. Thankfully, we can fix it. The others are fairly rare.
Just quickly, what is a cataract, and what part of the eye does it affect, and what's the treatment?
So a lot of people have a misconception that a cataract is a film growing across the eye, and that's actually not true. That's a pterygium, which is sun damage. What a cataract is behind your pupil, so the colored part of your eye, which dilates and constricts in the light, behind that is a natural lens, and that natural lens is clear when you're born. And as you get older, it becomes frosted. So think of the bathroom window pane. It doesn't allow the transmission of light. So as you get older, the lens behind the pupil becomes frosted like the bathroom window. That is what a cataract is.
So how do you treat that? How do we clear the lens? How do we make it less opaque?
So we can't make it less opaque, but what we do is we remove the cloudy lens and then we insert an artificial lens. And that's an amazing thing, because any glasses requirements you have, be they for distance, middle, or near, we incorporate those requirements into that artificial lens, which typically, if you have what we call premium cataract surgery, you will not require glasses afterwards at all, which is really a wonderful thing. And that lens has a minimum 60-year lifespan. Please God, that's not enough, but typically that lasts you for the rest of your life.
That's phenomenal. You're about to tell us what the after cataract, what the next biggest problem is that most people come to you with.
So certainly in Africa, glaucoma is the next biggest problem, and that's an insidious, painless, symptomless thief of vision, which causes tunnel vision and then eventually blindness. So glaucoma is quite dangerous because you don't know you have it. And about 9% of people in Africa have it, and you must be checked for it. So you need to go for your eye checks. They need to check the nerve at the back of your eye and the pressure of the eye. That's quite dangerous.
Pardon, doctor, what's that percentage?
909.
Okay.
So it's high. I mean, it's almost 1 in 10 people. So if no one walks through my office without being checked for glaucoma, that, you know, we take it very seriously, because you literally, if you walk in the shopping center and you look at 100 people, 10 of them have glaucoma, or 9 of them, more accurately.
Do we need to be doing things every day to look after our eyes better? You mentioned how the sun can do some damage to our eyes, and we work with these screens the whole time. Everybody's on their phones or on a laptop, and we've got lights on us all the time, and there's so much stuff that I suppose 100, 200 years ago, when the sun went down, the only thing you had was like candlelight, which is sort of mottled. It's not a bright light in your eyes. And now we have light coming into our eyes virtually all the time. Most people wake up, the first thing they do is they look at their screen. Is that affecting us?
So, the first thing is we're not designed to look close by all day long. So if you look, everyone's working from home now. As we're all sitting looking at a laptop screen. And before, we would have been talking across a table, with each other. So this close vision puts a lot of strain on our eyes. So my first bit of advice is take breaks and look far. And, in the office, you would be having meetings, you'd be going to the water fountain and moving around a little, whereas now at home, you literally have your entire day sat at this close range with the screen. So take breaks and make sure that you adjust the range of your vision. The second thing is that you may, on that point, you may want to get yourself a pair of relaxing glasses, just a small plus addition with a bit of a blue blocker, or what we call an anti-reflex coating, just to take off the harsh light and relax the eye a little bit. So when we talk about the harsh light, these screens are all predominantly LEDs, which push out mainly blue light, and blue light can be quite harmful to the retina. So it harms you in two ways. One, it's very harsh to the macular pigments, and that can cause a condition called age-related macular degeneration later on in your sort of post 55, 60 year age group. So it's very important. And equally, when you're outside, protect your eyes with sunglasses. The other thing that the screens do is if you work with them late into the night, the blue light prevents you from producing melatonin for at least 2 hours. So that can delay your sleep patterns. So by and large, the life we lead with all this technology around us all the time is it does affect us in quite a few ways with our eyes. So my suggestion is, if you can't, you need to sort of set up your life that you're not on the screen all day long. Maybe get a relaxing lens to relax the focusing mechanism in your eye, cut off the harshest blue lights during the day. Try and not use screens for 2 hours before you go to sleep. If you can't, then use an orange lens which blocks that light for the last 2 hours before you go to sleep. And then, try and not get sunk into those YouTube rabbit holes just before you try and go to sleep.
No, that's
Rob, no.
Especially the depressing ones that Sia gets into, watching old people reunited with their grandchildren. I mean, can you imagine anything worse? Saturday.
Exactly.
So, Dr. Rob, there's lots of stuff that I want to ask you about in terms of the medical aspect. What happens with people's eyes with macular degeneration, and what makes the eye work, and kind of how the rods and cones work and all that stuff. But before we get into any of that, COVID has come along and it's changed a lot. And there are probably people who haven't been able to go to the ophthalmologist because they've been afraid, or because they've thought that that's not a good place to go if you want to, if you want to catch COVID, for example. But how has it worked in your practice, and what has changed for you in the last year and a bit?
So during lockdown, we literally only saw emergencies. Primarily, most of the work I do is planned and sort of very much we line it up. So it's not emergency work. And if you needed to wait a few months, it would have been safer. Once things opened up again, we adjusted and made sure that we follow all the protocols to keep everyone safe. Luckily, I've had the vaccine, so that helps a little bit also. In terms of people coming back, a lot of our folks are in the slightly older age group, so they naturally are nervous of coming. But most of these people require regular checks, and they have problems like we mentioned, glaucoma and age-related macular degeneration. So some of those people had skipped their checkups, and we're sort of in a position now where some of those conditions have been neglected. So that's again one of the costs of COVID, where people haven't been able to come in for their checks, and things have perhaps deteriorated without being checked. So this disease really has cost society in many sort of secondary and tertiary ways, which we didn't anticipate. But nonetheless, we're back at work, and we're catching up with all of those things.
So tell me quickly, because this is this is one of those old wives' tales. But Andre says, do certain vegetables that you could eat help your eyes? I mean, are there certain vitamins? Are there certain substances that help the eyes that we need for our eyes to be healthy?
Good. That's a very good question, Andre. So the old adage of carrots is not quite true, because it's carrots contain contain beta carotene, which is two of the vitamin B molecules joined together. And in fact, the most important vegetables for your eyes are actually not carrots, but in fact, maybe Popeye was more accurate with the spinach, because the leafy green vegetables, spinach, kale, and broccoli, those contain lutein and zeaxanthin, which are the most important pigments for the back of the eye. And then also the yellow pigments, things like yellow peppers and egg yolks. So we now know that is more important, and those are very, very important. And then thirdly, omega-3. You can't go wrong by taking omega-3. It's good for the surface of the eye. It's good for brain health, which, as I said, is part of the eye. So I would say that oily fish, if not an omega-3 supplement, and then leafy green vegetables combined with some of the orange ones.
So not at all a stupid question. That made a lot of sense then, Andre. Thank you.
And then we've all discovered that our lives have been a lie.
Yeah, when your mother was telling you carrots every morning, it's like, no, not really. So I know that the visual spectrum for humans is infrared to, well, we can't even see infrared, but just a little bit from infrared to ultraviolet. And between those two posts is where we get to see all the various colors and all the spectrums of light that it is possible for humans to see. Are there any humans who could see beyond that on either side of the scale? Has there ever been evidence that we have the ability to see things outside of the normal human visual spectrum?
No, we have rods and cones, and then the third visual receptor just picks up blue light. So we don't have the genetic capability to make the proteins that read light outside of the visual spectrum. But what is interesting is some people process visual information differently, and this is quite interesting because, say, for example, you can have a cross wiring where people can hear visual information. So when they hear a sound, they will see a color. And sort of a far more common version of this is artists have a very different emotional experience when they look at a picture. So this is something we incorporate into our work, is if somebody is a visual artist, they interpret the world slightly differently because it's an emotional response as opposed to just pure visual information. So if I'm treating an engineer, I know this is quite, it's a mechanical setup, and it's very mathematical. Whereas an artist is that their visual perception elicits emotional response within their wiring. So that's incredibly interesting and very important for our work. So we take that into account and make sure that we counsel people how this might change and so on.
Oh, so that's what you mean when you say that you treat them differently? Because I was wondering, like, you don't actually do anything different surgically, but you would just approach the subject differently with an artist than you would for an engineer.
Yes. So take, for example, an interior designer. The colors will be, so if let's say, for example, a 65-year-old interior designer comes in, the cataract has changed that person's color perception. And then we counsel them that after the operation, they're going to perceive the true color, and that may change some of the choices they've previously made. So the most well-known example is the French painter Monet. Before his cataracts, all his paintings were brown and sort of oranges, because the cataract cut out the blue wavelengths. And then after his cataract, he complained that the world was awash with blue, and all his paintings were blues and indigos. So we counsel people and we inform them that they're going to be now experiencing the full color spectrum, and that may be quite a surprise. So I've had a couple of sort of Santon interior designers who had to go back and change the color choices after surgery. But they're all very happy, because it's like the world has had a wash, it's like a washing powder ad, because all the colors are bright and true afterwards.
What is the thing that has happened recently that you consider a major breakthrough? Are there things still going on in eye surgery, in the treatment of people who have, vision problems? Are there some new and experimental technologies being utilized that you're particularly excited about? Because a doctor like you has to keep ahead of the curve. You have to make sure that you always know what is available, what you can do for your patients. There might be things that they're discovering that we didn't know before. Are there things like that you could tell us about this morning?
So definitely, that's one of the joys of my field. It's because it's so highly technological. We're constantly upgrading our technology. So we've entered sort of the fourth industrial revolution, and we now have a Swiss robotic laser which performs cataract surgery for us. What that means is I only do about 25% of the operation. Give it a year or two, you won't need me anymore. And this technology, we basically pre-program everything on a touch screen, and we connect the robot to your eye, and it literally prints out the operation to 1 micron, which is 1/1000th of a millimeter. So it's humanly impossible to be that accurate. So the safety and the visual results are just astounding. And that's an available technology. There's currently 300 of those robots on the planet, and we're very lucky to have one. And it's very exciting to be involved in the forefront and using these new technologies and seeing such dramatic improvement in results and safety.
That is phenomenal. And wow. I mean, you jokingly say that you one day you won't need you, but I mean, a lot of people are very nervous about going to any doctor, and many people are very squeamish about the eye. You obviously do some of these procedures, if not all of them, in the chair, right? You basically just, what do you use? Like anesthetic drops, and then you just do your thing?
No, when we're working on the surface of the eye, so for example, laser vision correction, which is another one of the fields we specialize in, that's literally walk in, walk out. We don't even touch you. You lie down, takes a minute, the laser does its thing, and you walk out. But when we work inside the eye, so the moment we go inside the ball of the eye, that's in theater, which means it has to be sterile. So we do about half. Half Thursday is the whole day I'm in theater, and Friday the whole day I'm doing lasers. So the moment we penetrate the eye itself, you've got to be in a full sterile environment. Having said that, it's an absolutely painless operation with no stitches, and the very next morning you could go for a photo shoot. No one would even know you had an operation because the eye is white and beautiful. So I see Sia holding his face.
Oh.
It's the most civilized experience you could ever have.
I don't know why I have this ridiculous assumption that also the eye is like a boiled egg, and one wrong move and it could just pop out. Like I don't know why it is so uncomfortable to me, doctor.
So you know, because of that very specific link to your brain, many people do have that, call it an anxiety, where they don't want anybody to come close to their eyes, and they are very sensitive. And that's because of the value of the sense. Your visual sense is so valuable to you. So we know that, we appreciate that, and we work with that every day. You by no means are unique. A lot of people have that, quite understandably.
I'm not unique. Sorry.
No, not in that sense, because it's quite human. So it's a human reaction. But so what I mean to communicate to you is that we manage that. Most of our tests don't even come close to you. They're all photographs. So by the time you've kind of gone through our system for a few minutes, you quickly relax, because you see that we don't touch your eye, and we're quite harmless. So it's really quite civilized, and then you kind of accommodate what we do.
Is it true that people who have lighter eyes, in other words, not brown eyes, that they are more light sensitive, or is the color of the iris completely unimportant?
No, it is true. And someone like myself with blue eyes, my ancestors were adapted to getting more vitamin D more easily from lower light environments. And therefore, I have less pigment in my eyes. And my pupils are bigger to adapt to lower light. So when I come to an environment with harsher light, my pupils tend to be bigger, and my eyes are adapted to a low light environment. So people with darker eyes and equally darker skin, the pupil is smaller, and the pigment in the eye protects the eye from the light. So conditions like age-related macular degeneration are far less common in people with some pigment in their skin. So, you know, there are definite changes. It's all to do with the adaptations we've had over time to accommodate the amount of light that in the environment we live in.
So someone here wants to know, I can't use contact lenses or eye drops, and I battle with the glaucoma test because my eyes are so sensitive. Is that a condition, perhaps?
Well, the first thing is, the most common reason for not being able to wear contact lenses is an ocular allergy. So the surface of the eye is inflamed. So the first remedy is to get an over-the-counter antihistamine drop, which you can just pop into the pharmacy and they'll sell it to you over the counter. It's perfectly safe, and get going with that. Secondly, don't sleep on feather pillows. We don't like the protein which the feather gives off, because that can irritate the eye. And then when it comes to the glaucoma test, what's happening is typically optometrists use what we call a puff tonometer. So it blows a puff into your eye. And because the eye is already sensitive, they have that protective reflex where they're sort of closing the eye in anticipation, so they can't perform the test properly. And that's primarily because the eye is already sensitized. So a lot of optometrists now have the more modern version of measuring pressure, which it's called an eye care, so it doesn't use a puff and you don't feel it. So look for either an optometrist, you know, who has one of those, and have that test with them. And then over-the-counter antihistamines are very healthy. I tell people it's a bit like brushing your teeth. You know, we keep our teeth healthy. In Johannesburg and many other places in South Africa, there's a lot of pollution and dust in the air. So using an antihistamine over the counter, very safe drop twice a day, morning and evening, while you're on your back, as you wake up, as you go to sleep, it just soothes the eye and protects the eye from long-term damage.
Are most of these eye drops just saline solution? Is that mostly what it is? And not the antihistamine ones, but the ordinary eye drops that you would buy?
So the most common ones you see are lubricants, and they're basically, I call them expensive water. They've got some saline, and don't take me the wrong way. See, I mean, they're completely harmless. They've got some salt, and they've got some, hyaluronic acid that just lubricates the eye. But if you're suffering with dry eyes and you're putting in the lubricants all day and they're not working, that could indicate that there's something else wrong. So it's not going to harm you, but a lot of the time you will use those drops and not find relief. And so rather get a check and make sure that there's something that could be managed and avoid a long-term problem rather than sort of banging on with the lubricant.
So the white of your eyes, I've noticed some people that their eyes are not very bright white. Some people have all kinds of occlusions, for want of a better word, in there, and some of them are yellow, or some of them are very bloodshot. What is that all about? What's going on there, and can you do something about that?
Okay, so there's a few things. The first thing is that in general medicine, if the sclera or the white part is yellow, we call that jaundice. And typically that person's not feeling well and they would need to see a doctor because it might be a liver problem or something like that. But that's very unusual and quite extreme. The more common ones are either redness or a yellow or brown discoloration. So the redness we call a conjunctivitis, and that's inflammation of the covering of the eye, which is the conjunctiva. It's got lots of blood vessels, very sensitive tissue, and even if you get a speck of dust in your eye, it can become red. Interestingly, COVID is one of the causes of conjunctivitis. So 16% of people who are COVID positive have a conjunctivitis concurrently. But that doesn't mean that if you get a conjunctivitis, you have COVID. So typically it must be combined with those classic symptoms of malaise, fever, and a dry cough. But, that's quite topical at the moment. But most commonly, conjunctivitis is caused by something called an adenovirus, which is, your typical viral conjunctivitis or pink eye that we get typically from children. And, as they go to nursery school and so on. So that's normally short-lived. And then allergic conjunctivitis, you might have touched a surface or a cat or something like that. So that's the red part of the eye. And then longer term, the yellowing and brown discoloration of the surface of the eye is pigmentation, which is secondary to long-term allergy. So if the allergy is not controlled, so like I said, taking a long-term antihistamine is always a good idea if you have allergic conjunctivitis, because that inflammation, which is swelling over a period of time, heals with pigmentation. So the pigment molecules come in and they sit in the conjunctiva, and then the person's white of their eye starts to have a brown discoloration. And sadly, we can't reverse that. So can't do anything. So it's better to prevent it. And then on top of that, if the surface of the eye is inflamed and the sun burns the exposed part of the eye, that it's far more damaging. So again, sunglasses when we're outside, very important for everyone.
It's not just to look cool; they actually do a job.
Exactly.
We don't have time for all these questions because there are a lot of really interesting questions here. Carl says he had his tear ducts plugged. Carla says he had his retina torn in 2 places. But here's a good one from Sharon. Sharon says, I have an eye that waters all the time. What is that all about?
So that's a relatively common problem that presents to us, and we need to work out, is it too much production of tears? So is there something that's causing the tear production to increase, or is it a reduction in outflow of the tears? So you have 2 little things which we call puncta, and they're little tubes that drain the tears into your nose. and then the tears would go down your throat. So that's why you don't have tears running down your cheek all day long. So sometimes those are blocked. And the previous question was, well, I had my tear ducts blocked. So in a case where there's not enough tear production, we will artificially block the punctum to increase the remaining amount of tear. And equally, if those are blocked and it's causing what we call epiphora, which is tears running down the cheek, then we unblock them. So it's a bit like a tap with a drain, and the balance of flow of the water. So we just have to kind of get the input and output balanced, and then people are more comfortable.
You could also stop watching sad movies, Sharon, and that might help as well. So, part of it. All right, listen, I mean, Doc, I really could talk to you all day about this stuff. I find it fascinating, and thank you so much for sparing some time for us today. You obviously can help many, many people, and you do every day. And I'm sure that you are jam-packed with appointments again now that you're allowed to have everything, including emergencies, thrown into the schedule. You said you spend 2 days a week in the surgery. Do you also sell products like these glasses that you can wear for 2 hours before you go to sleep to help you with sleep? Do you know where we can get these things? Just give us some general info to round it off.
Yes, the glasses you can get at sleepspec.co.za or .com is easier, and you can just order them on the internet and they'll deliver them. So, and then we at the Santon Eye Clinic, which is in the foyer of the Morningside Mediclinic. But the easiest is just to go to santoneyeclinic.co.za, and all our contact details are there, and we'll have people that will guide you as to what would be appropriate for you.
This has been eye-opening.
Oh, for God's sake.
I know many people appreciate this today.
Oh, well done.
I know.
We're gonna let you go before this gets really ugly. So there's Dr. Rob Daniel. Thank you so much for talking to us, and Sia Sangweni, who's cracking the worst jokes ever known to mankind. All right, everybody, we will see you tomorrow at 6:00. We'll see. Did you hear that, Sia? We'll see you tomorrow.
You got it.
Oh, Gareth, it's an eye for an eye this morning. See ya.
Oh, for God's sake. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thanks.